Looking for your next job and feeling stuck? This in-depth roundtable conversation is for you. Listen to 3 expert recruiters sharing their unfiltered advice to help you land your dream job. Hey there, I'm Krista Vance, entrepreneur and operations leader.
And I'm Matt Vance, award-winning author and social innovation researcher. We're your hosts of the Culture Profit Podcast.
Your place for purposeful company culture strategy.
Learn from HR pros, executives, and thought leaders how to prioritize profits by prioritizing people.
This episode is sponsored by Mobrium, the best friend of forward-thinking HR leaders, helping you strengthen your employer reputation as a reflection of your real culture.
Learn more at mobrium.com.
Hello, everyone. Today we have something new for you. We've never done this before, but we're doing a special roundtable discussion. We've invited 3 expert talent acquisition leaders to share their best tips for your job search. Finding the right job for you is key to your success and that of the business you join. So let's give a warm welcome to each of our special guests.
Okay, yeah, so we'll introduce our 3 guests today. Sarah Bradshaw, can you say hi?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. We're so excited to have you, Sarah. Sarah is the Senior Talent Acquisition Manager at Mangomint, a leading software company for salons and spas, where as the founding recruiter, Sarah has played a key role in building and scaling high-performing teams. Outside of work, Sarah enjoys hitting the gym, crocheting, and indulging in reality television, especially anything on Bravo. Love it. We have a fellow crocheter here, so
Love it. I acknowledge your work, Matt.
What do you crochet, Sarah?
Blankets. I only know how to do straight lines. So blankets, scarves, hot pads. That's it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so cool. I like to do hats, and I've done stockings for our
You
family.
did all of your kids'
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, okay, that's where it's at.
You're more talented than I am at it. I have some things I need to learn from you, it sounds like.
You just kind of go for it.
Love it. Love it.
All right, next, let's give a warm welcome to Marcus Paiz. He is the senior technical talent partner at NetDocuments, a legal tech company with expertise in scaling high-performing teams across the tech and SaaS industries. He has a wife and 3 kids and enjoys doing graphic web design on the side, gaming, and listening to audiobooks. So thanks for joining us, Marcus.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, I want to hear what your most recent audiobook was.
Oh my gosh, I should know this, but I honestly, I love Ready Player One. That book got me back into reading, and I'll just re-listen to that audiobook.
There's a movie on that, isn't there?
Yeah, I don't want to be cliche, but the book is way different.
Okay, yeah, as usual, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're excited to have you, Marcus. And lastly, JD Conway, can you say hi?
Hey, everyone. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you. And JD Conway is the Senior Director of Talent Acquisition at Trucordia, a top 20 U.S. insurance brokerage headquartered in Linden, Utah. He is also the founder of multiple organizations, including Track Talent and Nimbus Investment Partners, and is a member of the Forbes Human Resources Council. Very cool.
One thing we missed is that I also crochet. Okay.
I was
No.
For real?
He's kidding.
I was gonna say we need to have a crochet party.
Okay, but we need to hear one thing about you too, because we talked about them too. So tell us one thing about you.
I am excellent at being a bonsai hobbyist and killing them slowly over time. So maybe that's one of the
Bonsais
things.
are so cool. Yeah. Yeah, those are the ones that have like the trunks that like wrap around, right?
Yeah, and and they
really
take a lot of TLC over time. You got to watch them and have the exact right amount of water. So I like the idea of how meticulous you need to be with it, and then I slowly kill them. And I don't do it very well,
You just
but
keep
it's
trying.
fun to try.
A lot of determination.
One day I'm going to keep them alive for years. Someday.
That's
Man,
awesome.
I can
relate
to that too. I've definitely had some plants die in the office, and Krista just got me this little cactus.
I said
we'll
that
see
maybe
how it
this
goes,
one you can
so.
keep alive. Yeah, I hear
Simplicity.
cactuses are a little easier, so we'll try it.
Yep.
Yeah, the succulent's the only one that survived me so far. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Hey, well, we're so excited to get started. We want to hear a little bit from each of you.
Yep. So Sarah, why don't you kick it off here? What are your top pieces of advice for finding your dream job?
Yeah, that's a really great question, especially with the way the market is right now. It's a really competitive market, and so it's really important to do what you can to stand out. So as I've been thinking about this and kind of talking about it with some of my colleagues and things, one of the things that really stands out, I think, about an application is the effort that you put into it. And one way to portray that is making sure that you're answering the questions that are on an application. Obviously, there's some that maybe you don't want to answer, like desired pay, and that's a different story. But questions that are asking for more information, like why are you applying to this job, or things like that, are going to go a long way. I would venture to guess that most of the time the company actually does read them. So actually answering those questions is going to go a long way. And along with that, not using GPT or other AI platforms to write your answer for them. Because it can be pretty obvious when that's the case. And although it just doesn't show a lot of effort. And so I think that's something that can really help candidates stand out, and stands out to me is when they actually put the effort in to put in a genuine answer. So that's something that I think can go a long way. The other thing that I kind of thought about was really trying to display your interest in the company itself, as well as the specific role. At Mangomint, we're very intentional with who we hire. We have a very strong why of why we do what we do, a very strong and clear mission and vision. And so it really means a lot when we find candidates who are passionate about the things that we're passionate about and really care about what we're doing as a company and are very excited about the specific role that they're applying to. So those are the first things that came to mind for me.
I love that. Follow the brief. And you mentioned that you like reality TV shows, and like my mind instantly went, I feel like every time we watch one of those competition shows, where they're like, hey, you need to do this and this for your cake or something, and then they just do something totally different because they can't help but be like artistic or something. And if they had just followed the brief, they wouldn't be removed from the show or whatever, right?
Yep.
So eliminated. So follow the brief. That it can go a long way.
Yes, that's a great way to put it, for sure.
And just one thing about what Sarah mentioned, the chat GPT thing. I understand the temptation when job seekers and you're out there and you're trying to get a million applications out, or you're trying to find the right place, and job seeking takes work. So I understand the temptation behind it, but we can read between the lines too. Like most of the time, people on the other end of this, they're using chat GPT to write job ads all day, so they can also see what's going on
They're
the
very
other
familiar.
end. Oh yeah, I started recognizing that recently, where I was like, a lot of recruiters are using ChatGPT just to like streamline and push things out. You can tell the voice, right? And there's an opportunity to really have your voice be heard. And it's sometimes a lot more subtle, but at the same time, I think you're missing out on that. So hats off to Sarah for bringing that up.
Yep.
Well, the other thing too is it doesn't need to be a novel, like with a question. It's like, tell us why you're interested. Just write a couple sentences, right, and have it sound like you versus AI.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be super in-depth, super length, like very deeply thought out, but even a little effort goes a long way, because that unfortunately doesn't always happen with applications. So that's very true.
And I'd imagine that you guys probably don't have a ton of time to read a novel anyways. So follow the brief and be brief, right?
Yes.
Be to the point.
Yes, that's a very good way to put it in beautiful words. Follow the brief and be brief. Yes.
Good job, Krista. And I love that. And one thing I want to point out about what you said, Sarah, because I'm definitely not an expert talent acquisition pro, but I have done some hiring in the past, and I always loved looking for alignment on the company level, as you said, like, does this person align with the mission, and what we do,
Values.
or are they going to just think this is dumb? You know, like, do they
Yes.
care about this? And do they align with that position?
Yes.
Can they do that specific job? So the fact that you pointed out those two, it's kind of like two levers of alignment that you
Yeah.
kind of want to make sure are in check. I think that's amazing, Sarah.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing that. Marcus, let's turn it over to you. What do you got?
Yeah, one of the ones I wanted to talk about is resume writing. I think this is always a big topic for people, and I think a lot of time candidates think there's like this perfect answer to what a resume is, and I think like as a recruiter, there's a lot of different answers. But if I had to narrow it down to one thing that I see missing a lot, I think people often leave out outcomes of what they've accomplished at a job. Instead, they kind of default to what's the job description say, and they kind of make their resume a job description. So I think like if it came down to someone who said, I just did this list of things versus this person who said, I've increased revenue 100 and whatever percent over the course of 3 years and hired this many people, like that's going to sound more appealing to me as a recruiter and really make a difference of who moves forward and who doesn't. So that, I think that, yeah, I've helped a lot of people with resumes since COVID. So that's the main thing I've seen. JD, maybe you have something to add?
Well, I was just gonna say hats off to that too, because I often coach people on a similar paradigm, and I say, hey, you know, what did you make, save, or achieve at a company? Made, saved, achieved kind of thing. What are the quantifiables that you have? So to your point, Marcus, like this really helps you stand out, and also helps you show that you're a results oriented person, not just I'm derping and doing my tasks. Forgive, like you know what I mean. Like there's people that just do the tasks you ask them, and the people that are outcomes driven. And no matter what job you have, if you're working at Slurpee Heaven or something like that, if you're outcomes driven, like it's going to show. And I also tell people that kind of diminish their own experience. If it's a pretty entry level job or something like that, they'll diminish their own experience all the time. And I go, take pride in what you did, no matter where it was, and show the outcome. So I just love that you brought that up. So it's something that's lacking in most resume writing.
So instead of saying, I'm a results-oriented person, you say, these are the results I can get you, right?
There you go. Absolutely.
The way it was described to me is look at your resume as like precious real estate. And like a resume isn't a mansion, right? Like if it was a place where you live, it's like a studio apartment. Like as soon as someone walks in, they're going to see everything that you have. So it's like, have that first impression count. Yeah. And same thing, I guess, just to tie in with what Sarah said, the Chat GPT thing, same thing with resume writing. Some people do that, and that's fine. Use it to like guide how you're writing your resume, but also make it sound like you and make it unique.
That makes a lot of sense. And I love that comparison of viewing your resume as precious real estate. That's what you want to highlight, what you want to emphasize, and having those, those pieces where you focus on what you make, save, or achieve. I love that. And JD, I think we should also put the I'm derping in the highlight reel. I think that's perfect.
I don't know where these things come from.
He's going to be doing a TED talk on that next.
Whichever the three of you that gets a resume that says I derping at this job, I mean, they know that they're listening to you.
Hired right away.
I excel at that, so that's why I commented on it myself. So
that's awesome.
But really, Chat GPT, there is a place for it. You mentioned it. It's a great starter. Like, give me a template for a resume, and then you can go from there. But as far along as Chat GPT has come, it can't take the place of your voice, right? And so I think having both of them together can make a strong case.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
JD, what do you want to add to the conversation? What are some of your top tips?
Well, I love that we're talking about the design of things and being thoughtful about what we're writing, right? I think that's the whole issue that I've seen in kind of modern application. A lot of people that I know that I'm helping out try to find jobs, they get application taxation. I made that up, so we can just write that down later. But they really get exhausted by the amount of applications they're pushing out to the universe, and I think that's the problem is they need to chop the amount of applications they're pushing out to the world and be thoughtful and deliberate. Not saying you throw all your eggs in one basket, but at the same time, and you should be looking at many different opportunities and opportunities to pivot and look into different fields. And I think that opportunity is often not taken just because people think that's what we have to do. So apply. After a little while, that's going to get exhausting, and you're going to get exhausted of catering your resume to each one or trying to rewrite something else. I often tell people to write a master resume, and then they can take pieces from that, from their experience, and easily kind of plug and play for different jobs. But I think the most important thing nowadays is to be more targeted. We have opportunities to network that we didn't have during the pandemic. I mean, other than more and more video calls, which made us all want to just rip. That's how I lost all my hair. There's just an opportunity now where you even see in the industry, in many different industries, like the financial services industry, they're trying to bring everybody back to the office. More and more companies are starting to go more hybrid or more in office or something like that. So by the nature of what's going on in the market, you're going to need to look closer to home more often. The remote jobs are still there, and they're always going to be there, but they're going to be a lot more competitive. So maybe when you see that there are 700 applications for that job already, maybe don't chase after that one so hard unless you know somebody in that company or something like that. But I think there's a lost art of actual networking. And that's the beautiful thing about LinkedIn. This is why I love LinkedIn. Like, I don't have to worry about the formatting of my LinkedIn page or anything like that, right? It's already there. It's just the profile. Maybe mine's a little bit too verbose, but I don't need to worry about very much. My experience is there. And the beauty of that is that you can take your network and you can start building it anew, afresh. Go back and connect with people you used to work with that would recommend you. Take people to lunch in fields that you're curious about. Fields are constantly shifting, and people are going to remember you when you are having these active, proactive conversations. You should be looking on kind of a regular basis and keeping things open. I would say one of the biggest mistakes is people will wait until the last minute until, oops, I got laid off or something like that to network. They wait to network. They should be networking all of the time. And then that way it makes it much easier for a transition down the road. So in 2025, that's what I would say is do everything you can to take people to lunch, have the phone calls you need to, discover more about other industries, develop network relationships where you're giving something to them too. And my gosh, that's going to yield results for years. So
yeah, like JD said, LinkedIn is such a powerful tool as well as building a network. There were some applicants recently that I ended up chatting with, in large part because connections of theirs commented on a post of mine saying, hey, this person, and tagged them, and it is really great. Loved working with them, and had nothing but great things to say about their experience working with them. And that stood out a lot to me because that doesn't happen very often. And then I had another candidate who, someone that they had worked with before who knew me, messaged me on LinkedIn and just said, hey, I've worked with this person before. I know they're interested in this role. I think you should really chat with them. So that coming from someone who they had worked with and having that recommendation, who I knew and trusted, went a long way as well, and ended up doing a call with both of them. Again, in large part because, they were obviously qualified as well, but it helped them to stand out, because it's, at this point, for me, from what I've seen with jobs, it's not about being qualified or not qualified. It's about standing out from the qualified candidates, because there's a plethora of qualified candidates that apply. And I unfortunately can't talk to all of them. And so those things really helped them to stand out from the number of qualified applicants who had reached out. So, yeah.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. And honestly, these are some incredible tips, like standing out. You are selling yourself. When you're looking for a job, it is sells, but there's only one unit's being sold, and that's you, and you're bringing your talent and your skills and your knowledge to bear to help move a company forward. So you have to think like a salesperson a little bit and think, what does this person want to buy? They want solutions, they want value. And I think that's kind of the root of standing out and focusing on those outcomes instead of just, I was there, I was part of the team, I was present, I showed up. That's way less impactful than I made a difference. I am curious on this topic. I know all of you do a lot of helping people way beyond the job description. People come to you because you're so knowledgeable. They say, hey, Sarah, hey, Marcus, JD, I did get laid off. Now what? I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Like, what advice do you give those people to help them find for themselves what they want?
Ooh, great question. Sorry, did you say to help them find for themselves what they want to do?
Yeah, because you never want to say, you should go do this, you'll love it, because what if they don't?
Yeah.
It's kind of this inception role that you play of like helping them find for themselves what's the best idea. So how do you guide someone through that, like, self-discovery? They're laid off, they don't know what to do. How do they find that next thing that they could really love?
I think helping to empower people to recognize that you can learn almost anything. And the beauty of what's going on in the world right now is that information is available everywhere. And you can find some free channel of it, right? You don't always need a structured course to do X, Y, and Z. You can go, and in fact, so much of what a lot of talent acquisition people have to do is teach themselves, because they're in small teams. They're like, I think when I met Marcus, he was a one-man show at a company, and he's or something like that. And so, like, people, you just have to learn so many things yourself, and to empower people. That I was talking to a family member, and I said, listen, you don't need to go back and get a 4-year degree in X, Y, or Z. You just need to go learn what you want to do and try different things out. And it's okay. Everyone's going to have many different career fields or many different career pivots. That you shouldn't feel bad about it. Statistically speaking, all of us in recruiting are going to get laid off at some point, if not multiple times, because that's usually one of the teams that gets cut first. So no matter what your mental state, just remember that you can learn anything. And as far as trying to learn new things, I always tell people, look at the top sectors that are projected to grow in the next 10 years. There's usually a large grouping of them. That's off the top of my head, I know healthcare's on there, aviation's on there. When you think of the amount of air traffic happening with like Amazon packages and everything like that. And it's not just being a pilot in aviation. It's all the systems people that need to make sure things are together. It's the mechanics. It's no matter what your skill set is or what you're prone to liking or disliking, in almost any industry, you can find jobs that are within those kinds of functions. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just echo and amplify what JD said about gaining information. That's going to be so helpful. And that can be talking to people in roles that you think that you're interested in. That can be listening to podcasts. That can be like reviewing lots of different job ads or job descriptions that are out there. Shadowing jobs sometimes that's an opportunity that people can take advantage of, but really just trying to gain information and get insight into the good, the bad, and the ugly of what a role or field like that is like, so that you know if it's something that you would be happy in long term. So yeah, I'd say that gaining information is going to be really helpful, and it can be done in a lot of different ways. So
yeah, can I add something too?
Yeah,
please.
It's your turn.
I think sometimes it can be about pivoting and switching to like a different industry or a different job, but it could also be rediscovering yourself in the job that you're currently in. Because I think sometimes we get complacent when we're doing the same thing day in and day out. And so, and I think that can come across in interviews too. And I always tell people, especially if you've been doing a job for years and you feel like you can't get a job and you keep getting rejected after interviews, I think like it's super uncomfortable, but recording yourself answering questions, you're going to hate watching it, but it actually opens up your eyes to like something you could change in what you're saying, or maybe like the excitement that you're showing answering a question. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents there.
I love that. You don't necessarily have to say, I'm just going to go off and do this completely new thing. You can take some time to kind of check in with yourself on, hey, why did I get into this fields to begin with? I did enter this space for a reason. Let's revisit that and kind of refine. I really like that. And I like the idea of pivoting as well. One thing that I've told a few different people is, give yourself space to like reevaluate, make a checklist of like your must-haves and your nice-to-haves in a job experience. Is it location? Is it like pay? Is it benefits? Is it industry? Is it this type of schedule? You know yourself better than anyone else. And if you do this audit of your needs and wants, then you can almost reverse engineer which types of jobs, companies could align with what you really are passionate about. And I think to your point, JD and Sarah, about like you need to align with the company, that could help you be more targeted, because then when you actually do go apply to that job, you can say very specifically why you align to say, I need a job that aligns with my schedule, remote flexibility, and I love this space. And those two things together is why I'm really excited about this opportunity. I think there's a lot there. Marcus, I want to pick on you here for just a second. I know you helped a lot of people like in the COVID time. Were there any like patterns you saw as you were talking to people, like recurring themes of what questions you were getting?
Just about like job searching?
Yeah, just like anything related to finding that next role.
Well, first of all, I do want to point out, sorry, I'm kind of going back.
Yeah.
Matt, you're a perfect example of pivoting, right? Because you were in corporate HR, now you're doing HR things like with your own business. So you pivoted in the same industry. So I just wanted to point that out as an example too. It's not just about moving to another company. You could start your own. But yeah, as far as like helping people during COVID, that was just a weird time. So very unique circumstances, but I do think like the resume writing was like a huge topic, and it always is. I have people reaching out to me all the time asking like what they can do differently. And yeah, there's some resumes I see and I'm like, wow, I really need to work on this. But there's other ones where they're super self-conscious, but they're perfect. I'm like, there's nothing I would change. I think just going back to what I said before, I think it's representing yourself in the right way, because like I've interviewed people where I was so excited going into it based off the resume, but they really didn't wow me or really didn't show what the resume said in the interview. And so I think it really does go back to practicing that, because people they don't know what they sound like when they're talking to recruiters, hiring managers. But also another thing too is going back to JD's comment about like you see 700 applicants on a job. If that's the job you want, go all out. Do some of the things that JD said. Go connect with people at that company, and maybe the timing isn't right. Maybe they hire somebody else because just what the market's like right now. But I think like if you get your foot in the door, maybe it's in a year they're hiring again and you get that job and they don't even open it up, right? They just reach out to you. So there's things like that, like the networking piece, that I think it's really important now that we're out of the COVID era.
And oh, JD, you go first.
No, I was just going to say, like the importance of having many irons in the fire, I think can't be diminished at this time, no matter what platform you go from or what you're targeting or anything like that. Having discussions with people about different fields, or Matt, I don't know who you talked to when you did your pivoting, right? And other things like that. If you're constantly learning about how to maneuver those things and learning who has done it and trying to get your foot in the door, like Marcus said, you can have many irons in the fire. And I think that's what's missing, is that people at their current job maybe kind of falling asleep at the wheel a little bit, getting a little complacent, rather than I guess excitedly looking forward to whatever that next thing might be. And I think if you have purpose in doing that, then it's going to be a lot easier to have these irons in the fire at this company you've always wanted to work at. Okay, great. Like you may not get there eventually at all, but you may not get there for 3 years. You may, whatever it might be, you networked into it and you took the opportunity, the advantages that the modern world has, which is things like LinkedIn. I can go find out who's in charge of hiring today at that company. That's weird, right?
Yeah.
Like 15 years ago, there was not a thing. You just, and I feel like people may have missed that. Maybe it's just because I'm old, but there's so many things that are available to you right now. And I sometimes have to remind job seekers, I'm like, Google it. You'll figure it out. You'll be okay. Sometimes we just need to feel like someone's holding our hand to go through that. But it's like, you got it. You're fine. Like, just go after it. It's all right. So
GPT can hold your hand, right?
That's true.
Yeah. There you go.
What were you going to say, Sarah?
One more thought that brought up is just to be open. Even when, and employers might not love me saying this, but even when I haven't been looking for jobs, a lot of times when people reach out to me about like, hey, I want to chat with you about, this company or this role we have or things like that. I'm usually upfront with them. Hey, I'm not looking. I don't intend on leaving anytime soon, but I'm still happy to have a conversation because I want to be respectful of their time. So I'm always very transparent about where I'm at. So, back in, actually when I came to Mangomint, the recruiting market was really hot. And people were really needing recruiters and I was open to having conversations. I wasn't planning on leaving and, obviously ended up coming to Mangomint and have loved it. But even before then, I had lots of conversations with people, which really just built my network and helped me to learn more about what I did and didn't want in a company, which was instrumental in my satisfaction in my role in a great way, as well as in my long-term growth and trajectory. So
that's amazing. Yeah. And having those open conversations along the way just help you see things so much more clear, which I think is very powerful.
Transparency really is for the benefit of both the person applying and for the recruiter, because both sides, have to match. They have to match. And so when you're not honest and, maybe you get that job and then it's not a fit. So on both sides, it's important to be transparent.
Totally. And even sometimes those conversations will lead you to be even more happy or more satisfied in the role that you're in. Because sometimes seeing what else is out there, you're like, actually, I'm really happy to be where I'm at. So it can go either way, but it never hurts to be open and to have those conversations and build your network.
Yeah.
So
love that.
Yeah. And those relationships transcend whatever current situation you're in. Like,
totally.
I worked at Bamboo, but I interviewed there multiple times before I got the job. And I feel like if I would have been bitter and like resentful, I don't think I would have ended up on that team. And I had really good relationships. But same thing with where I work now. I actually was declined. And then later on, they needed another recruiter and they just reached out to me and hired me. So like the relationships really do matter. And sometimes I am surprised when an applicant reaches out in frustration after they get declined or something. I totally get it though. And I relate to that frustration. But at the same time, is that the type of person to reach back out to?
Yeah.
Yeah. Play the long game for sure. I think that's really important to have those relationships intact. Well, this has been so energizing. I feel like pumped.
Yeah, we could keep this conversation going a long time.
But any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I think there was one thing, right, JD, that we kind of, that we it's something we've discussed together before, but I guess I'll just start into what we were saying. But just remember that everybody is humans with their own lives, their own things that they're going through, recruiters and applicants. Like recruiters, sometimes we have a lot of positions we're working on with a lot of different candidates to sort through. We're trying our best, but at the same time, hold us accountable. But just realize, give some grace, and when things aren't going perfect, I guess.
Yeah. And I was, as we were talking about this, and we discussed a little bit the other day, this is a good year to look for a job. There's been continuous job growth. The jobs report just came out last week. Unemployment's at 4.1% nationally. That's solid. So there's good things going on in the job market. It's just hard to read where it's shifting sometimes. And one thing to note, and to kind of piggyback on what Marcus was saying, a lot of companies a few years ago, when everyone did a pullback, they cut lots of recruiting staff. So right now you have a lot of recruiting teams that are very understaffed or non-existent at this point. And you have somebody in an HR function it's only 15% of their job to look at applicants. So sometimes people will get frustrated. The main thing you have to do is not get frustrated in your job search, which is very easy to do. It's very taxing, right? So don't get frustrated, because on the other end, as Marcus said, there are people on the other end that sometimes they're just trying to make through the 300 applications they got in 24 hours or something like that. And they're trying to do right by people, but there's only so much they can do as well. And any effort that is persuasive, but not, and I guess persuasive and persistent will go a long way. To Marcus's point, if you are just being kind and send a quick outreach message to somebody in the HR team or the hiring manager or somebody you want to know at that company or something like that, that effort really isn't wasted. It's not a big deal. You send a very short note. Hey, wish you the best. I'm not asking anything. Just, if there's any opportunity for this job or another one down the road, would love to talk about it. Best of luck to you. What a gracious way to introduce yourself and then move on if you need to. You may never talk to them again, or you may develop a really, really cool networking relationship. And some of mine have lasted years and years, and we've never worked at the same company, but it's been pretty cool.
That is very powerful. Love that, JD.
Yeah, I know that job searches can be really emotional and very draining. And so I just say, try to not let it get to you, and recognize that there's a saying, I don't know where it comes from, but that rejection is just redirection. And so it might be leading you to the next best thing for you that could be even better. So remembering that, and then specifically in hiring teams, just recognizing that it can be a very emotional and very taxing process. And to recruiters specifically, I'd say remembering that the hiring process is not about you. It's about the candidates and the teams that you're hiring for and finding the right fit. So taking that ego, kind of yourself out of it, and just remembering the why of why you're doing what you're doing, I think can just make the process and experience a lot more enjoyable for yourself and for the people that you're working with too. So
thank you. I think that's a perfect closeout for this episode, and amazing advice for anyone who's maybe dissatisfied at their job and needs to just get that, excitement again, and those who are looking for a new job. So listen, tune in, and leave us a review, and we'll see you next time.
We'll make sure to include links so you can connect with JD, Marcus, and Sarah on the highlight article for this. So if you want to connect and take the advice here and keep the conversation going,
please do. Yes.
Do it. That'd be awesome. So thank you guys for being here. We'll see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for tuning in to the Culture Profit Podcast, and for being a part of our journey to prove that putting people first is best for business.
Today's episode was sponsored by Mowbray.
Want to get more employee reviews and streamline your employer reputation? Visit mowbray.com.
Now go find one way to prioritize your people and watch your profits grow.